Real quickly before we begin, I want to thank this video's sponsor, CarMarshal.com. CarMarshal.com can save you lots of money on buying used or new vehicles, cars, trucks, school buses. If you want to save money, I'll have a link in the description down below. I know I'm going to...
Ferris says his son is... This report is more than 60 pages long. The sheriff apologizing for breakdown of policies, procedures, communication here at the Island County Jail. Deputies have resigned, other staff are on leave, but for the family of Keaton Ferris, that is not enough.
He was my guy, he was my best friend, he was my son, you know, and he was taken, taken from all of us.
The report shows the 25-year-old died after jail staff had lied about checking on him in his cell when they hadn't.
I'm surprised that they're still housing inmates there right now. I mean, you read that report and it's just, it's a joke. I mean, it's laughable.
His father says Ferris was a star athlete in high school who'd recently struggled with mental illness and who ended up in jail after trying to cash a forged check and missing a court date. What happened next is why Fred Ferris says his son is dead.
The level of incompetence.
According to the report, on March 26, Ferris was booked into the Island County Jail. On April 4th, the report says he flooded his jail cell, so he's moved to a cell where the water was turned off. On April 6th, when a jail nurse checked on him, he said, quote, "I need a medical professional." She asked him how he was doing. "Not good," he said. On April 8th, he was found dead.
He was supposed to be in a safe place. He was supposed to be cared for, and he died from dehydration.
Attorney Kathy Goder represents the family.
I would imagine a lawsuit will be filed.
For now, though, the focus is on Ferris. His parents are making these shirts, and they've distributed thousands of water bottles with his face. They plan a protest outside the jail on Sunday and say the whole jail needs to be cleaned out, not just the few named in the report.
And I'm sure they have a hard time sleeping at night, and they should, because it's not right.
And for some context here, the jail is about 3 blocks away from the hospital, where his family says Ferris should have been taken, but never was. In Island County tonight, Nick McGurk, Cairo 7, Eyewitness News.
Officers sentenced to only 5 days in jail for dehydrating man to death and covering it up. Officers responsible for dehydrating a mentally ill man to death in a prison cell were sentenced this week and received an insultingly low 5-day jail term. By Matt Agarist, April 19, 2018. Island County, WA. In 2015, Keaton Ferris, 25, was accused of trying to cash a $355 check that wasn't written out him. After failing to appear for his court date, he was arrested on March 20. He would not leave the jail alive. Now, after 3 years of trying to hold the officers responsible for his death accountable, Washington State's version of justice has been served. The officers responsible for his death have been sentenced for their crimes. However, it is a kick in the teeth to Ferris' family. As HeraldNet.com reports, on Tuesday, 2 former Island County jail guards were sentenced for forging safety logs to make it seem like they'd been checking on Ferris more often than they did. David Wayne Lind, 55, and Mark Edward Moffett, 61, pleaded guilty to false reporting by a public officer, a gross misdemeanor. They were sentenced to a year in jail with all but 3 months suspended, a Whatcom County Superior Court judge ruled. 5 days must be served behind bars. The remainder can be community service, outside of a jail. For causing the death of a presumed innocent man in one of the most horrifying ways possible, these 2 former jail officers will only spend 5 nights in jail. If we were outside of the jail, and we cut off somebody's access to water, and we were in control of their environment, and we didn't feed them enough, there's no question that's going to be a serious crime, Fred Ferris, Keaton's father said. It was many people, Whatcom County Prosecutor, Dave McEachran said in court Tuesday. It was the whole system that just wasn't working. It was a total failure by the entire staff, by people who should have known better. Indeed, as the story below points out, everything that could have been done wrong, was. As TFTP reported at the time, Ferris had no prior criminal record but had struggled with a history of mental illness. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2013, but had improved with medication, according to family members. 20 days after being taken into custody, on April 8, Ferris was found dead in his cell. After his death, Island County Sheriff Mark Brown released a report apologizing for dehydrating and starving this young man to death. "I am truly sorry for this tragic death," Brown wrote in the report. "Our highest priority is the safety and well-being of our inmates and staff, and this report describes a systematic breakdown of policies, procedures, and communication that led to this tragedy. We are determined to do everything possible to minimize the chances of this kind of a tragedy from occurring in our jail ever again," Brown said, adding he had met with Fred Ferris to express his condolences. However, no apology will ever bring Fred Ferris back his son. What's more, the breakdown of policy was actually a deliberate cover-up of a man's death in the custody of law enforcement. "Sorry, we killed your son." In the days leading up Ferris' death, an incompetent system of brutality and neglect would come together to facilitate the killing of this young man. Upon arriving at the Linwood jail, Ferris pleaded with officers. He tried to tell them that he was off of his medication. His father even called in and told jail officials the same. However, these requests were ignored. Instead of treating the obviously mentally ill and distressed man, Ferris was met with force, tasers, and restraints. He would be transferred to multiple prisons as law enforcement officers refused to render aid. He was moved to the Snohomish County Jail, where staff made notes that Ferris appeared gravely disabled and was displaying symptoms of psychosis, according to the Daily Herald. The Herald reported at the time. He arrived in Skagit County in a restraint chair and refused to speak. Jail staff were advised that he had been shocked with an electric stun gun while at the jail in Everett. Skagit County corrections officers restrained him and requested he be seen by a designated mental health professional. That never happened because the request was too vague and there was a question about who had jurisdiction over the man. He ended up at the jail in Coupeville because San Juan County doesn't have a jail and uses island counties under a contract. When San Juan County deputies arrived in Skagit County to take custody of Ferris, he refused their commands to stand up, and he began to ramble. During his stay at Coupeville, Ferris had completely broken down. He then flooded his jail cell after putting his pillow in the toilet. Instead of seeing this as the obvious mental condition that it was, officers simply cut the water off to his cell. Jail policy is to check on an inmate in Ferris condition once an hour, and according to their logs, jail officials did check on Ferris. However, according to the surveillance footage, which doesn't lie, they never checked on him. 2 days later, Ferris would be found dead in his cell at 12:40 a.m. on April 8, 2015. After his death, the system attempted to reform itself by hiring a new jail chief, Jose Briones, who has expertise in dealing with the mentally ill. Also, mental health professionals are now required to assess inmates daily and document their interactions. After the sentencing, both officers expressed their remorse, but stopped short of taking the entirety of the blame and passed on to the culture of the jail at the time. "I am so sorry for everything that happened here," Lynn said. "It's unbelievable. When I found Mr. Ferris deceased, I was stunned, I was shocked, I was in disbelief. I agree with Mr. Lind. I was caught in the same trap that he was, in that jail," said Moffat. He then turned to Keaton's family and said through tears, "Most of all, I want to apologize the family. To the mother, the father. I can't even imagine. I accept whatever punishment they give me." As the Herald points out, Fred Ferris has had a voice in the reforms at the jail. Yet he fears there will never be real justice for Keaton. "At this point, if I had any control over this never happening to anybody again," he said, "I'd do whatever it took to get there."
You know, I'm a clinical dietitian. We deal with people's food and fluid needs all the time. And when this happened, I live 3 blocks away from the jail. I couldn't believe it. I was putting my head on my pillow every night where someone was denied their basic needs for water. This also is not the first death in the Island County Jail related to what I'm just going to call medical neglect. Gregory McBride died the beginning of 2014 related to issues around liver failure, but diarrhea, did not receive medical care, I believe, until he was in the ER at Whitby General and died. There's a pattern in here, and sins of omission are still sins. No one in this day and age in a climate controlled facility that's 3 blocks of a hospital should be dying in that jail. No one. Every life is valuable. Every person in there is someone's child. Every person in there is a member of our community and has family in this community, and it's absolutely not acceptable. So I hope you will join us in keeping the pressure up on the papers to report it, on people to investigate it, to look into the prior death of Mr. McBride as well, and to give support to this family who has lost so much absolutely unnecessarily. No reason, no good reason. We cannot let this leave our awareness. We cannot let up. So please continue to, after today, don't stop with today. Write letters, keep the pressure up, talk to people. We're not going to let this go on at our jail or any institution in our community. And please continue to give your love and support to this wonderful family. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Tell me a little bit about your son.
He was a 25-year-old, big heart, compassionate, fun, a lot of friends, loved his sisters, artistic. He was a writer, he was an athlete. He was loved by so many people, and you know, he was taken from us. He was literally taken from everybody and from a community, and he's just an awesome guy who gave great hugs and had a great smile. And I'm never going to get another one of those hugs. And there are people responsible for that. There are people that...
Accountability.
There's people that are responsible for him not being here with us today. And those people, I mean, I honestly can say, as not a hateful person, every one of those individuals, I hope, gets what's coming to him.
This is preventable.
I have a message for the prosecutor, Greg Banks. Keaton Ferris died because some people inside there had a duty and they did not do their duty. And now the prosecutor has a duty to do. There was a crime committed. Keaton did not die of natural causes. He was killed. When you deny water to somebody, you are killing them. And now the prosecutor has a job. His job is to prosecute people who commit crimes. This was, at the very minimum, this was criminal negligence. My message to him is, you have a job to do. Please do your job. Your job is to protect us. When somebody commits a crime, you need to prosecute them. And there was a crime committed in here, and I want him to prosecute this. All of us want him to prosecute.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I just wanted you to know that I am using this stuff under fair use. And also remember to like and subscribe this channel. Also too, keep in mind I do not make any money on YouTube. This is 5 hours work a day, you know, fighting for freedom. And you can donate with PayPal and Patreon. I just want you to think about this. If everybody gives to PayPal and Patreon, Patreon is every month. Actually, PayPal you can do every month. I have 12,000 subscribers. If everybody gives, I can quit my regular job and go full-time investigations on Charlotte County and possibly even more and beyond. So just keep that in mind. If everybody helps out, I can go full-time doing this. Thanks.